They laughed while throwing my belongings in garbage bags, calling me mediocre. But I had access to something they forgot about. What I discovered changed all our lives forever. At 31, I discovered that the people closest to you can become your greatest teachers. Not in the way you'd expect. My girlfriend of 20 months threw my belongings into garbage bags while my older brother watched and laughed. They called me weak, said I'd never amount to anything. What they didn't know was that quiet doesn't mean powerless. Sometimes the strongest response is the one nobody sees coming. 3 decades of life had taught me patience, but I'd never needed it like this. The morning everything changed started like any other Tuesday. I'm Michael, a quality control supervisor at Henderson Manufacturing. Not glamorous, but honest work that pays the bills and gives me pride in what I do. My brother Christopher, 35, works in pharmaceutical sales with his company Camry, and that insufferable confidence that makes people either admire him or want to throttle him. I've mostly been in the throttle camp, but blood is blood, right? Catherine and I had been together since that New Year's Eve party at my buddy's place. She's the kind of beautiful that made me check my reflection twice before every date for the first 4 months. Marketing coordinator, always posting those perfectly crafted Instagram stories that make ordinary moments look like magazine spreads. Sometimes I'd catch her studying me with this puzzled expression, like she was solving an equation that didn't quite add up. Should have paid attention to that look. Last Tuesday felt routine until it wasn't. Equipment malfunction meant an early end to my shift. I texted Catherine that I'd be home by 4 instead of 7:30. No response, but her phone notifications had always been unreliable. At least, that's what she told me. I pulled into our apartment complex at 4:17, climbed those familiar stairs with their squeaky third step, and heard voices filtering through our bedroom door. Then I heard Christopher's laugh. That same triumphant sound from childhood when he'd beaten me at something. I stood in our narrow hallway like a fool, my work boots still on, just listening to my life unravel through thin walls. Michael's never going anywhere. Christopher's voice carried that casual cruelty I remembered from adolescence. 6 years at the same job, same routine, same mediocre ambitions. The man has no spine, Catherine. You deserve someone who can actually provide a future. I know he's sweet. Catherine's voice held a note I'd never heard before, dismissive and tired. But sweet doesn't pay for the life I want. Sweet doesn't make me feel alive. You understand what a real woman needs, what it takes to actually succeed in this world. My hand found the doorknob before my brain caught up. Wasn't even locked. Christopher sat on our bed, not touching her, which somehow felt worse. They looked completely at ease, like this conversation happened regularly. Catherine had her legs tucked beneath her, leaning toward my brother with genuine interest. Christopher's arm stretched across my headboard with the casual ownership of someone who belonged there. They both looked up when I entered. No guilt, no scrambling apart. Just mild annoyance at the interruption. What the hell is this? My voice cracked like I was 16 again. Christopher stood, all 6'2" of him, that familiar smirk spreading across his face. Hey, little brother. Thought you were pulling a late shift. Equipment breakdown. Why are you in my bedroom? Catherine sighed like I was a child interrupting adult conversation. We were just talking, Michael, about how I have no spine. That's when Christopher moved closer, always using his height advantage. Look, someone needed to be honest with her. You've been holding her back, Michael. Catherine deserves better than clocking in and out of the same dead-end job for the next 30 years. Better like you? You're engaged to Rebecca. He actually laughed. Rebecca understands how these things work. We have an arrangement. She gets the ring and the status. I get my freedom. Everyone wins. Catherine stood too, arms crossed, and I saw her clearly for perhaps the first time in 20 months. Michael, this hasn't been working for a while now. I've been trying to find a way to tell you. So you discussed it with my brother instead of me? Because he actually listens. Her voice rose with genuine frustration. He understands what I need from life, what I want to become. You're content with mediocrity, Michael. That's not enough anymore. Christopher placed his hand on my shoulder with mock sympathy. Michael, you've always been like this. Comfortable with scraps, satisfied with ordinary. It's not your fault, man. Some guys are built to lead, others to follow. You're a follower. I shoved his hand away. Get out of my apartment. Catherine's laugh cut through me like broken glass. This is my apartment too, Michael. And honestly, I think you should be the one to leave." The words hit me like physical blows. "We're done? We've been done for months," she said with the finality of a judge's gavel. "I just didn't know how to tell you that I was wasting my time with someone who's going nowhere." I looked between them, really seeing the dynamic for the first time. How comfortable they were together. How they'd positioned themselves as the adults in the room while treating me like an obstacle to remove. "How long?" I asked. Catherine rolled her eyes. "Nothing's happened, if that's what you're asking. But Christopher's right about everything. You're never going to change, Michael. You're going to punch that time clock for the next 3 decades and call it a life." Christopher checked his tag heuer, the one our grandfather left him. "Look, this is awkward, but man to man, just pack your essentials. Give her some space to think. She's made her decision." I started gathering things mechanically. My laptop, some clothes, photos of our parents. They watched like I was entertainment, occasionally whispering, occasionally sharing knowing looks. When my arms were full, Catherine tossed 2 garbage bags at my feet. "Use these for the rest. I want everything gone by Thursday." I filled those bags while they supervised my humiliation. As I reached the door, Christopher called out with false cheerfulness, "Hey, no hard feelings, right? You'll find someone more your speed eventually." I left without a word, drove aimlessly for hours until my buddy Marcus offered his couch for the night. Next morning, I rented a weekly room at the extended stay and began sorting through my belongings. That's when I found my old iPad, the one I'd stopped using when Catherine got me a newer tablet for Christmas. The iPad still logged into my iCloud account, the same account Catherine used for backup because she was too frugal to pay for her own storage. The backup contained months of messages that proved "nothing's happened yet" was a spectacular lie. They'd been texting since February, starting with Christopher asking casual questions about me, then Catherine venting her frustrations. The flirting began within weeks. They'd met for coffee, lunch, long walks, while I worked overtime to afford the weekend trips she kept requesting. The worst part wasn't even the betrayal. It was how they talked about me. Christopher should have seen Michael's face when I got the Henderson account last month. Same defeated look he had when I took his bike at 12. "Some people are just born to lose." Catherine: "That's me. He does try." Christopher: "Trying isn't succeeding. Bet I could have you if I really wanted to." Catherine: "You're engaged." Christopher: "Doesn't mean I can't show you what you're missing, what he'll never be." Screenshot after screenshot revealed the depth of their planning. How they discussed the timing of our breakup. How Christopher had encouraged her to be crueler than necessary because Michael needs to understand his place in the food chain. But here's what they didn't know about me. What they'd never understood despite 3 decades of shared history. I don't fight the way they do because I don't need to. I don't chase drama because I prefer precision. They mistake patience for weakness, planning for passivity. Time to show them the difference. More digging revealed interesting details about Christopher's perfect life. His promotion to regional sales manager was happening in 3 weeks. The engagement party with Rebecca was scheduled for next month at the country club. His reputation in our family as the golden son who could do no wrong. Most importantly, I discovered that Christopher's entire relationship with Rebecca was built on mutual deception. She knew about his cheating, but stayed for the social status. He knew she was only interested in his money, but needed her family connections for business. A house of cards waiting for the right wind. I called in sick Wednesday and Thursday, needing clear headspace for what came next. This wasn't about emotion anymore. This was surgery. First, I reached out to Rebecca through her sister Emma, whom I'd always gotten along with at family gatherings. Mentioned I was planning Christopher's bachelor party and wanted her input on activities. She seemed surprised I was taking the responsibilities seriously given recent events. I played confused. She didn't elaborate. We met for coffee that Friday at that overpriced place downtown where they charge $8 for caffeine with foam art. I arrived early, ordered black coffee that cost more than my lunch, and waited. Rebecca arrived with that expression people wear when they're about to deliver difficult news. We exchanged pleasantries about the wedding venue, the caterer, whether I was holding up okay after my amicable split with Catherine. According to Christopher, we'd simply grown apart and decided to end things maturely. Very adult of everyone involved, she said, twisting her engagement ring. Want to see what actually happened? I asked, placing my phone between us. Her face changed as she scrolled through the messages. That slow recognition, the color draining from her cheeks. She kept saying there must be some mistake, some context she was missing. I didn't push, just let her read everything herself. When she finally looked up, her hands were trembling slightly. Has he done this before? I hesitated, not because I didn't know the answer, but because speaking it aloud felt like crossing a line I couldn't uncross. But Christopher had obliterated every line that mattered. I told her about Melissa from college, about our cousin's friend during that lake house weekend 2 summers ago, about his ex, who mysteriously developed feelings for his roommate right before Christopher started dating Rebecca. Pattern established. Rebecca left with copies of everything and a promise to think carefully about her next steps. No tears, no dramatic outbursts, just quiet dignity and a request for time to process. I respected her immensely in that moment. Phase 2 required accessing our family's shared photo storage. Mom had set it up years ago so we could all share holiday pictures. Nobody had ever changed the password. Mom's maiden name plus her birth year. Fort Knox security right there. I found folders dating back years. Christopher with various women at family events while supposedly in committed relationships with others. The evidence painted a clear picture of someone who viewed relationships as opportunities rather than commitments. Uncle Richard was trickier. He'd always seen Christopher as the son he never had, grooming him for bigger things within the pharmaceutical company. Richard needed to see who he was really promoting. I called him with a request for career advice, something he'd offered multiple times over the years. We met at his country club Tuesday evening after his golf game. He ordered his usual bourbon, offered me one. I accepted despite hating the taste. Richard launched into his standard speech about career trajectory, leadership potential, whether I'd considered sales. I let him run his course before mentioning Christopher's upcoming promotion. Concerned about nepotism accusations? I asked carefully. Richard bristled. Christopher's earned everything through merit and hard work. Perfect opening. I mentioned hearing concerning rumors about how Christopher had secured the Morrison account last quarter. Nothing illegal, just ethically questionable. Taking credit for his team's work, using company resources for personal networking, inflating his contribution to deals he'd barely touched. Richard studied the evidence I showed him, finished his bourbon, ordered another. By the time we left, he was asking pointed questions about other accounts, whether I had additional concerns, whether anyone else knew about these irregularities. Seeds planted. Mom invited everyone for dinner Thursday night. Family tradition when someone's going through rough times. Supposedly, that someone was me dealing with my breakup. Christopher showed up 40 minutes late, rumpled and agitated. Hugged Mom longer than usual, avoided eye contact with me. His phone buzzed constantly throughout dinner. He'd check it, frown, put it away, repeat the cycle. Dad asked about Rebecca. Christopher said she was swamped with work planning. His phone lit up again. More froing. More agitation. I was the perfect son that evening. Helped with dishes, asked Dad about his back surgery recovery, brought out the board games after dessert. Christopher excused himself twice for calls in the backyard. Through the kitchen window, I watched him pace and gesture frantically. When he returned the second time, his face was gray with stress. Everything okay? Mom asked with genuine concern. Christopher forced a smile. Just work stuff. Nothing important. He shot me a look then, like he was trying to read my thoughts. I smiled back and rolled the dice for Monopoly. By 10 o'clock, Christopher was barely holding himself together. Sweating, checking his phone every 30 seconds, making excuses about early morning meetings. He left abruptly, claiming sudden illness. Dad commented that Christopher seemed overwhelmed lately. I shrugged and mentioned something about the pressures of success. Friday morning brought the flood. 5:15 a.m. First text from Catherine in 2 weeks. We need to talk. Please call me. Deleted without reading twice. 9:42 a.m. Christopher's message. Whatever you're doing, you need to stop. This isn't funny anymore. Screenshot saved. No response sent. 11:50 a.m. Missed call from Uncle Richard. 1:30 p.m. Email from Rebecca requesting another meeting. 3:40 p.m. 8 missed calls from Christopher. 4:15 p.m. Text from Mom asking why Christopher and Rebecca were taking a break. I met Rebecca at a quiet diner Saturday morning. She looked exhausted, hair pulled back, No makeup, eyes puffy from what had clearly been a sleepless week. She'd confronted Christopher with everything. He'd denied it initially, then minimized it as harmless flirting, then finally admitted to one mistake with Catherine. Rebecca had conducted her own investigation after our coffee meeting. Found other messages, other women, other lies. She'd quietly returned the ring, but hadn't told the families yet. "You saved me from the biggest mistake of my life," she said quietly. "I was so focused on the wedding that I forgot to look at who I was marrying. We shared a basket of fries and talked about everything except Christopher. Her job teaching high school English. My childhood dream of restoring classic cars. The cooking show we both secretly watched despite finding it ridiculous. Normal conversation. I hadn't realized how much I'd missed that. As I paid the bill, my phone rang. Christopher's name on the display. Rebecca saw it, and her expression hardened. "Take it," she said. "I want to hear his voice now that I know the truth." I answered on speaker. "Hello." Christopher's voice came through desperate and slurred despite being 11 a.m. "What the hell did you do?" Rebecca returned the ring. "Uncle Richard is reviewing all my accounts." "Why are you trying to destroy my life?" I looked at Rebecca. She nodded slightly. "I'm not destroying anything, Christopher. Just sharing truth with people who deserve to know it. Same courtesy you showed me when you told Catherine I was weak." He started shouting then. Called me jealous, pathetic, said Catherine had been miserable for months anyway. I hung up and turned to Rebecca, who was gripping her coffee mug like it might steady her world. "I was supposed to marry him in 8 months, she said very quietly. Would have had children with him." She thanked me again. I drove back to my extended stay feeling hollow. Victory doesn't taste like I thought it would. The messages kept coming all weekend. "Christopher, you're destroying an innocent woman to get back at me. Catherine, please answer. I made a terrible mistake. He lied about everything. You weren't supposed to find out this way. Uncle Richard, need to discuss the Christopher situation. Call me. Mom, Christopher showed up drunk last night. Your father had to drive him home." "What's happening?" I told Mom I'd explained everything Sunday dinner. Brought printouts of every message, every lie, every manipulation. Let her and Dad see exactly who their golden son really was. Mom cried. Dad got that quiet, angry look he gets when someone hurts his family. They'd failed both of us, they said. Christopher by enabling his worst impulses, me by not seeing what was happening under their roof. The promotion was officially suspended Monday morning. Uncle Richard called it pending review of irregularities. Christopher was placed on administrative leave while they audited his accounts and client relationships. His perfect life, dismantled one truth at a time. But here's what I've learned about revenge at 31. It's not the satisfaction you imagine it will be. It's more like cleaning an infected wound. Necessary, but painful even when you're doing the right thing. Catherine kept calling, kept texting, kept leaving voicemails I didn't listen to. Her final message came Tuesday morning. "I know you'll never forgive me." I wouldn't forgive me either. Just want you to know that losing you was the biggest mistake of my life. He never wanted me. He just wanted to hurt you, and I helped him. I have to live with that forever. I read those words several times, felt nothing where 20 months of feelings used to live. Hit block, took a breath, started planning my actual future instead of reacting to my past. Found a real apartment last week. 1 bedroom, decent neighborhood, dishwasher that actually works. Signed a lease, bought furniture, hung pictures on walls that belong to me. No backstabbers allowed. Ran into Rebecca at the grocery store yesterday. She looked different, lighter somehow. Hair shorter, wearing jeans instead of the designer dresses Christopher preferred. She was buying ice cream and comic books. For my nephew, she explained with the first genuine smile I'd seen from her. Teaching him that Saturdays are for fun stuff. We talked for maybe 10 minutes in all 7 between the cereal and the pasta sauce. She'd started dating again. Nothing serious, just remembering what it felt like to be valued rather than displayed. She asked about my apartment, seemed genuinely happy that I was rebuilding. As we parted ways in the parking lot, she said something that stuck with me. "Thank you for showing me that some people will tell you the truth even when it costs them something." I told her she deserved honesty. She said so did I. Christopher texted me yesterday. "First contact in 2 weeks. Can we talk? I know I messed up, but you're my brother. I stared at that message for a long time, then deleted it without responding. Some relationships can't be repaired, only acknowledged for what they really were. I'm learning that the strongest people aren't the ones who take whatever they want from others. They're the ones who know exactly when to stop giving pieces of themselves away. They're the ones who understand that quiet doesn't mean weak, patient doesn't mean passive, and kind doesn't mean stupid. People mistake my calm for compliance, my thoughtfulness for timidity. They see someone who doesn't need to dominate every conversation and assume I have nothing important to say. But there's a difference between choosing your battles and being afraid to fight. I chose my battle carefully. I fought it quietly. I won it completely. At 31, I've learned that revenge isn't about destroying someone else's life. It's about refusing to let them destroy yours. It's about protecting your own peace by removing people who mistake your kindness for weakness. They called me weak because I didn't fight dirty. Turns out, I just fight smarter. The apartment is quiet tonight, except for the gentle hum of my dishwasher and the distant sound of someone practicing violin. My neighbors seem normal. No drama, no manipulation, no one plotting to take what belongs to someone else. I have a job I'm good at, a family that finally sees me clearly, and a future that belongs entirely to me. Christopher can rebuild his reputation if he wants to. Catherine can find someone else to underestimate. Me? I'm done being underestimated. I'm done being the considerate one, the understanding one, the one who makes excuses for other people's cruelty. I've learned that sometimes the most radical thing you can do is simply refuse to participate in your own diminishment. Sometimes strength looks like walking away. Sometimes victory looks like peace. And sometimes, the best revenge is building a life so good that you forget why you needed revenge in the first place.